Good morning. My name is Ann Packham, and I'm going to be your service leader today. Welcome, everybody. The few of you here that are here in person, and everybody out there in the Zoom, YouTube, internet world, welcome to our shared sacred space at the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are in interesting times right now where we have decided to limit in-person attendance here in the building until the Omicron variant diminishes. So in the meantime, we're happy to welcome everybody in their living rooms or in their bedrooms or wherever they are in their pajamas. So stay safe, stay warm, and we will get started. Before we actually get into the meat of the service, we like to have our committee chairs give an opportunity to talk about what's going on in the life of the church. So I'll just start myself and then let anybody else who wants to make an announcement come up here. I am in charge of the women's group along with Roberta and Julie, and we are meeting this Friday by Zoom at 7 o'clock. So if you haven't gotten that email or like to join that group, please put something in the chat, and I'm sure Happy will let me know afterward how to reach you. Who else has a committee moment? Who's here in the building? Judith?
Judith has 3. Hello, everybody. Everyone here, which are very few, and all of you. I have 3 messages this morning. The order of things starts with OWL. The OWL team has decided that they are watching the current numbers for COVID very carefully and have decided to delay the parent meeting, which was supposed to be next Sunday, after the service. They expect to reschedule the parent meeting later today when they have a meeting together to figure it out for early in February. They will reach out with the new date through announcements during the service, through notable news, and through the RE News. And if you have any questions in the current RE News are all their email addresses, so feel free to reach out to them yourselves directly. So the next thing you need to know is that in lieu of OWL starting immediately, Chris Reed and myself have decided that we're offering an online parents and caregivers as sexuality educators class, and this is for parents of kids of all ages, starting this evening, and the link for that is in the RE News, and I can also send it out to you. My email, you can reach out to me by email or text me if you have my thing. Just let me know by 7 o'clock tonight so I have time to respond to y'all. Ultimately, we will be limiting the number of parents in the room, the Zoom room. It will be online if that didn't become clear. We'll be limiting the amount of parents, but we got to figure out how many are attending. Right now, I have about 4 RSVPs, so let me know who's planning to attend. We're doing that from 7:45, starting tonight at 7:45 until it'll go till about an hour and a half later. However, we will adjust based on the conversations we have in the room tonight, what is the best start time and what is the best ending time, and how many sessions we'll be having according to what we find out this evening. It is important that everyone that wants to attend at least show up tonight so that we know how many are going to be there, and there's some information you need to know to start getting comfortable with the material. Because we're taking over the time that is normally the parents' support group time, which usually runs from 9 to 10 online, the parents' support group has kindly offered to go on hiatus until this class is over. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone in person and online and Zoom. It's so nice to see you, however I'm seeing you. I wanted to just remind you of our pathway to playground joy. By the way, I'm Karen Cowden. And that I have brought and gotten made I'm not sure if Patrick can zoom in, but it does say our playground brick fundraiser, of which I have here. So I'm very excited to share. We had 2 more bricks purchased. The bricks are $100 without a logo, but then you can add a logo. There's a flyer that I have that I'll leave here, and the information is right in the notable news as well as across our newsletter. I am putting a little goal out. Since it's 2022, even though the number's off, we would like to try to raise $2,022. Okay? So last time I think we got right around $2,000 for the mortgage one, so if that would be something we can do. And I will figure some fun, funky graphic with Trista to encourage us to fill that in. But we have $300 towards that goal already. So let's keep it coming in. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome today. I'm Reverend Tracy, and I wanted to remind everybody that we are going to be starting on February 26th, which is a Saturday, a class called Harvest the Power. It is a leadership development class. You do not currently have to be a leader. In fact, what we're kind of looking for are those of you who maybe want to be a leader sometime, but you don't know what's involved in that. You can RSVP. The link is in the notable news. Or you can email me and I'll send you the form. We're going to limit it to about 20 because it may, it's going to hopefully be in person, but we may have to switch online depending on the numbers. So 20 is a good number. We will offer another section of this later. So if you can't do the Saturday ones, but you're interested, let me know what day works for you so that I can then plan for the next section of it. Thank you so much.
I have an announcement that came from Sarah Sullivan, who is organizing our covenant groups, to remind everybody that those groups are getting ready to be formed. There is a place on the website where you can go and sign up, and you can specify, it's through a survey, if you want a group that meets once a week or once a month, what day of the week works for you. So please get moving on that if you're interested in a covenant group. I have another communication from Happy on my watch, but I can't see it without looking at my phone. So let me grab that real quick to see if it's anything related to a committee moment. Otherwise, it may be a joy and concern. There's questions here just related to the bricks. I'll direct those to Karen later on. Also says the men's group will be meeting tomorrow. I'm assuming if you're on the email list, you have that information there. Are you meeting in person or by Zoom? Do you know, honey? He doesn't know. I'm sure it'll come out in the email. Check out for that. Beacon group was going to do s'mores today, but given the weather conditions, that's going to be postponed until next Sunday. The Social Action Committee would like me to announce that the League of Women Voters of Seminole County is sponsoring a Zoom forum on reproductive rights Friday, January 21st at 7 p.m. And it's free, and you can find it at the League of Women Voters Seminole County website. And for those who came yesterday, we had a work day here at church, which is the third Saturday of every month. And Dave was here, Derek, Barry, and Patrick were all there. And thank you very much for all of your help. And I think that's all that I can see on there. So my opening words today are from Brene Brown. I just got her Atlas of the Heart book just before the holiday break. I've read about 5 pages so far because I haven't found very much time. But she writes, in these challenging moments of dissonance, we need to stay curious and resist choosing comfort over courage. It's brave to invite new information to the table, to sit with it and hear it out. It's also rare these days. Our opening music today is A Change Is Gonna Come, and I believe that's gonna be online, and Patrick will play it on the video.
It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Lord, there've been times that I thought I could last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Lord, there've been times that I thought I could last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Now we will light our chalice. The chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, and I invite you to share the words that are on the screen as I light it. And I did want to add that I forgot to mention in the beginning that in normal circumstances, we would have a child here from our congregation lighting our chalice, and how much we all miss that. So we're hoping we can be back together one day, but I'll light it right now. So please join me in these words.
In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share.
And we like to say each week our affirmation that reminds us what binds us together as a congregation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. I would like to extend a warm welcome to any visitors we have. I don't see anybody here in the building that is not part of our congregation, but I'm hoping they're out in the Zoom world. We have some visitors out there. please feel free to reach out to Happy, who's our Zoom moderator, with your name and email address if you would like to receive our newsletter. This is a eclectic congregation where the topics and the speakers every week vary. We have traditions, faith traditions, political, social justice, everything in between. So please join us multiple times so you get a good flavor for who we are. And hopefully you'll get to meet us face to face once things get a little bit better. So take a chance now to greet each other online. Here in the congregation, I don't think we need to shake hands because there's so few people here to really say hi, but big shout out there to everybody, and we hope to see you in person really soon. Now is the time in our service where we share joys and concerns, significant things that are going on in our lives. And I believe what we're going to do is have our friends in the Zoom world sharing first. So, Patrick, I'm guessing that you are going to somehow make that magically happen. If you are here in the sanctuary, you're welcome to come to the podium to share your joy or concern, or we can bring the mic to you. I'm guessing that you are going to somehow make that magically happen. If you are here in the sanctuary, you're welcome to come to the podium to share your joy or concern, or we can bring the mic to you. We're a little bit delayed here in the sanctuary.
Folks in the meeting room, we are going to share our joys and concerns directly in the congregation. I'm going to stop sharing our screen right now. And then if you would just like to share your joys and concerns, they're going to project us up onto the screen. I'm hoping Patrick will communicate with me when we're up on the screen via our communication link. So is there anybody that has a joy or concern that they can share with the congregation today? It's nice for us all to be together in the Zoom room. I think that everybody is muted. And we're ready. John looks like he has one to share. Hey, John, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Amy and I just got back from Belize yesterday, and truly beautiful place, beautiful people. It's a great time.
Thanks, John. That's beautiful. Can we have anybody else that wants to share?
Can I just add something to John's announcement? Although it was perfect. He forgot to add that his brother was there with us, and his brother turned 70, and we are very grateful for Alan Mowbray. He is just a terrific human being.
Any other joys and concerns?
I don't see any hands raised. Okay. I'll let Patrick know we can start the joys and concerns from the meeting room.
Are there joys and concerns from the individuals here in the congregation? I was just going to share that last week I had announced on the Zoom session that Carl's mother had tested positive for COVID-19, and we were very worried because she's in her 80s, but she's doing well, so we're happy about that. I'm also joyful that open enrollment is done right now for the health insurance marketplace, so things should be a little bit quieter for a little while for me in my work. Anyone else here in the room have a joy or concern they'd like to share? Tracy, you just came in, or you want to share a joy and concern, or you're just saying hi? Okay. Well, let's take a moment. We didn't have a lot of, concerns today, but I'm sure people are very concerned about a lot of things that are going on right now. So let's take a moment to think about those and also uplift the joys that we can find in the midst of all of this, and just take a moment to meditate on that. Amen. Well, it's definitely a joy to have Beth Kiefer here with us to do our Time for All Ages. So Beth is going to share from the other mic.
Unmask here. I feel like the Lone Ranger. Good morning. I'm going to tell you a true story of a life well lived. This is the story of a man who devoted his life to justice and equality for all. All of us start somewhere. Michael Luther King was born in Atlanta, Georgia on Tuesday, January 15, 1929, to Mother Alberta, a school teacher, and Father Michael Luther, a Baptist minister. Michael's name was later changed to Martin after the famed historical figure. Alberta taught the three siblings to read before they went to school, and she gave them piano lessons. Like many children, they liked to play baseball and football, and Martin had a paper route. Martin wanted to be a fireman when he grew up. The extended family lived in what was called the Williams House, named after their grandpa, the Reverend A.D. Williams. It was just blocks from the iconic Ebenezer Baptist Church. The King children learned a pernicious truth at a young age. Boys and girls, pernicious means very destructive and evil. This evil truth was that they were treated differently because of the color of their skin, called black, than children with light skin, termed white. Flagrant segregation was practiced everywhere in Georgia and the South. This was because of the onerous and unconscionable prevailing Jim Crow laws and the systemic racism built into local, state, and federal laws affecting housing and schooling nationwide. Black children and adults were called colored and were treated as lesser humans by the law, very much, and in my opinion and experience, the crushing ignorance of many people. Black, colored people were often expected to live separate from white people. This was called segregation. Martin began to understand that separate is not equal, not when you're treated with disrespect and as an inferior person because of the color of your skin. Martin, I'm still calling him Michael. Martin was entirely intelligent, and he left high school after only completing his junior year. That's because he was admitted to Morehouse College. He graduated with a BA in 1951. Martin then attended Koser Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. For the first time in Martin's young life, he sat in a desegregated classroom. He was 22 years old. Martin met his wife, Coretta Scott, in Boston, where she was attending music school. Martin was matriculating at Boston College. He earned his PhD in systemic theology in 1955. The Kings moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and Dr. King became the minister at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. They raised 4 children. Reverend King was a great admirer of Mahatma Gandhi and traveled to India in 1959. They were to become lifelong friends. Dr. King attributed his success in civil rights to his adoption of Gandhi's passive resistance techniques. Reverend King's dream for justice and civil rights for the people and all people was his life work. Footnote. On a personal level, I met Dr. King years ago in the Atlanta airport. To say I was in awe is an understatement. I said, I never have met a Nobel Peace Prize winner before. It just popped into my head and out of my mouth. He smiled and extended his hand and said, I thank you for that. I will never forget the warmth and humility that exuded from him as we warmly shook hands. We all have to start somewhere. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was once a little boy growing up. Reverend King's voice was never silenced, and his dream lives on, and we fight on in his name to this day. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. And that's amazing that, that we had to have you here and that you actually got to meet him in person. What a joy.
Yes.
Right now is our time for our interlude and offering. This is when we have an opportunity to contribute to the work and the life of this church. You can do that you can do it in person if you want to, but the basket is not sitting over there because I forgot to bring it over. So I think Judith will go and get that. For those of you who are in the Zoom room or on YouTube, you can go to our website. There's a little URL there and you can donate. I think it says Habitat for Humanity, but I had also heard from a little bird that we were contributing this quarter toward reproductive justice, and the organization was still to be determined. So 40% of the offering goes to a social action organization within this congregation. So please give generously, and we'll listen to some music while we're doing that. Our speaker today is the Reverend Tracy Barrett. Tracy began working here as our minister in September, so we're now, 4 or 5 months into it, and we are so excited to have her share with us today. So without further ado, I introduce Reverend Tracy Barrett.
In 1963, 2 years after our merger to become the Unitarian Universalist Association, the General Assembly took up the issue of racial inclusiveness. The issue at hand was an amendment to the UUA Constitution, or the bylaws, that stated that member congregations must, quote, maintain a policy of admitting persons to membership without discrimination of race, color, or national origin, if they wanted to maintain their voting rights within the organization. There was controversy over this amendment. That controversy was over congregational polity, the authority that individual congregations have over their own property, the way they govern themselves, the calling of their ministers, and how they set the standards for membership for their congregations. It was this point that they argued. Duncan Howlett, the minister of All Souls Church Unitarian in Washington, D.C., said, the question before us is not integration. On that, all of us are virtually agreed. The question is how we're going to achieve it in our kind of denomination. In freedom we shall do it, not by legislation and not by constitutional amendment. And it's important to note here that Howlett was a longtime civil rights advocate. And you've probably heard me say before, it's not the intention, it's the impact. And that's what was happening here. We had ministers and congregations saying to our siblings of color, well, of course we believe in inclusion, that's not the issue. We just shouldn't put it in our legislation because that conflicts with congregational polity. You understand, of course, right? And that may have been the intention, but it was definitely not the impact. The impact was that our denomination held congregational polity as more important than being radically inclusive. And by the way, the vote did not pass. A weaker resolution recommending and reminding congregations of their ethical responsibility did pass, but it wasn't the same. 3 years later, in 1966, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. presented the Ware Lecture at the General Assembly in Hollywood, Florida. He said, one of the great misfortunes of history is that all too many individuals and institutions find themselves in a great period of change and yet fail to achieve the new attitudes and outlooks that the new situation demands. There is nothing more tragic than to sleep through a revolution, and there can be no gainsaying of the fact that a social revolution is taking place in our world today. We see it in other nations in the demise of colonialism. We see it in our own nation, in the struggle against racial segregation and discrimination. And as we notice this struggle, we are aware of the fact that a social revolution is taking place in our midst. 1966 could still be true today. He continued by saying, the idea whose time has come today is the idea of freedom and human dignity. And so all over the world, we see something of freedom explosion. And this reveals to us that we are in the midst of revolutionary times. An older order is passing away and a new order is coming into being. King encouraged us, and remember, he was speaking to Unitarian Universalists. He encouraged us to 4 specific tasks to stay awake through the revolution. And they were to instill a world perspective, to reaffirm the essential immorality of racial segregation, to refute the idea that there are superior and inferior races, and to move into the arena of social action. This was 3 years after we, as Unitarian Universalists, voted against saying in our bylaws that we supported inclusion, that we affirmed the immorality of racial segregation, and that we were moving into the arena of social action. I wonder if any of the people sitting in that room listening to King thought about what happened 3 years prior. I wonder if King knew what had happened 3 years earlier. And I wonder where we would be as a movement, as a denomination, if we'd been brave enough to see that our intentions were not lining up with our impact. Now, I've preached before about how we, as Unitarian Universalists, have not always lived up to our aspirational principles when it comes to how we interact with our own Unitarian Universalists of color. This is a major issue, and one that was taken up by the Commission on Institutional Change for the UUA. The Commission was charged at the 2017 General Assembly to conduct an audit of the power structures and analyze systemic racism and white supremacy culture within the UUA. This commission heard a need for a process of truth and reconciliation. Their report, Widening the Circle of Concern, is the beginning of that process. And by the way, that report is available on the UUA website, and I encourage every member and friend here to take the time to read it. The commission first convened a gathering of UU leaders of color. They were asked in 2017 to share, quote, how the association could continue moving forward in the midst of another racially charged moment. And I want to read to you some of the things that were lifted up as issues. Quote, addressing the perennial problem of race in Unitarian Universalism is not broadly seen as a theological mandate. Quote, no shared accountability structures and processes are in place to hold people accountable for the continued harming of Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color among us. Quote, the diffused nature of our organizations, each within their own accountability structures, means that ignorance and aggression are experienced again and again in different leadership contexts and as leadership changes. Quote, our faith seems to have no room for repentance and saying when we have failed. Quote, we need to both learn the lessons of history and acknowledge that these are new times. Quote, we lack a consistent analysis of how power works among us and how that power is centered around white, cisgender, heterosexual, and temporarily abled bodies with means. When asked in 2020 if there were any updates, someone said, religious professionals of color struggle to maintain their jobs, and many end up deciding to leave or being asked to leave. And finally, people of color and others are targeted and endangered in this world, come into our congregation seeking solace, only to discover that while our beliefs are grounding and life-giving, the ways they are practiced in too many of our communities cause harm, confusion, and pain. That's a lot. And it can be daunting. But we cannot sleep through this revolution, my friends. Our siblings of color are asking us to do something. We have the opportunity to right the wrongs, to choose impact over intention, to uphold the power of our covenant, and to widen our circle of love. Okay, but how? One way is to ground what we do in our justice work in a spiritual or ritual principles. In other words, why are we doing what we're doing? While Unitarian Universalism is a pluralistic faith tradition, which means we have people all over the spectrum of belief, it would be incorrect to say that we don't have a theology. We have a theological history, and our spiritual ancestors sacrificed a lot to leave us a tradition that values both freedom and commitment. Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt said, we are the theological inheritors of teachings on universal salvation. There is no winnowing out of the supposedly unworthy that can be named sacred among us. It is our very universalism that is at stake when we turn away from the impact that our institutions have on the same communities and groups that society encourages us to dehumanize and make small. The commission, in one of its recommendations around theology, said, the idea that you can believe anything you want and be a Unitarian Universalist is actually not valid. We have a theological container within which one can hold a wide range of beliefs about God, about how to practice one's faith, and about how to live. Because we live at the intersection of multiple traditions, defining this container is essential. Because much of the perceived theological work is from white theologians and scholars, we also need to re-engage that work through contemporary lenses. In other words, we need to center the theological work of Black scholars, Indigenous scholars, and scholars of color, both professional and lay, whose knowledge is resonant for our times. We also need to have a stronger understanding of the nature of our covenant. It is vital that we remember that we are a covenantal faith, which means when we screw up, when we make mistakes, when we hurt someone, we come back to the table and say, I'm sorry, I broke our covenant, I want to fix this, and then do the work. It also means that we do the work to be true allies. It means we address and deal with people who are disruptive and causing micro and macro aggressions within our covenantal community, as well as doing that outside our doors. That means really living our faith and our principles. It means being okay with being uncomfortable. It's not fun to stand up to people we know when they're making comments that can be microaggressions. The commission recognizes this. They said, too often we make decisions based on what generates the least conflict within the majority culture and what allows conformity to continue. Tools for encouraging constructive conflict and understanding that our living tradition requires us to always be living into new ways of being are important. I mean, that's easy to do, right? I mean, I don't know of many people who fully enjoy dealing with conflict. I mean, perhaps some conflict resolution people, but they're a special kind of people. For the rest of us, that's hard. Challenging the status quo is hard. Challenging white supremacy culture in our society is hard. Challenging the white supremacy culture that we have been steeped in is hard. Challenging and changing the white supremacy culture that sadly is still present within our beloved tradition is hard. And all of it is necessary. The Commission wrote on their blog in 2018, our basic premise is that if we can live into the full participation of those who have been most marginalized among us, we can create a responsive, vibrant Unitarian Universalism. A Unitarian Universalist faith marked by full equity and participation will continue to play a vital role in transforming lives and communities. I have great hope for Unitarian Universalism. I believe that we can be a force for good in this world. And I believe we have a lot of work to do. Internally, within ourselves, our congregations, and our association, we must do that work before we can really create change in the wider world. 56 years ago, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed we could make this change. He asked us, Unitarian Universalists, to stay awake during the revolution. Sadly, we have been caught napping, but it's not too late. We can wake up. Mark Morrison Reed ends his book, Darkening the Doorways, with the following, and I close with it today. If Unitarian Universalism stands for love, it is wed to freedom. Freedom invites vision. Vision leads to change. Change causes anxiety. Anxiety awakens resistance. Freedom begets vision. Vision leads to change. To embrace change means welcoming someone with an open mind and responding with interest to different behavior or beliefs rather than a raised eyebrow, a frozen smile, and silence. See that reaction for what it is, a sophisticated way of masking fear. Hold that fear at bay and let your heart lead the way. Change means discomfort, and because of that discomfort, some people will leave. They have in the past, and they will again. Let them go. For those who remain and commit, the discomfort becomes bearable when we recognize that it is for our benefit, that transformation is its result. Healing the systemically transmitted virus that is racism is nothing less than grace. Grace, the moment when we sense within ourselves that something broken has become whole, cannot emerge without freedom. Stasis and control are fear's bastion. Welcoming change means being open and adventuresome. It asks us to celebrate the breadth of theological and social diversity Unitarian Universalism already encompasses, and then to reach beyond it. It means recapturing the excitement we once felt about the new, the wonderment, the curiosity, the openness we knew as children before fear shut it down. It means seeing diversity as a gift we cannot wait to get our hands on. Change will come whether we work for it and celebrate it, or distrust it and resist it, or simply wait. Our history says that it will come whether we want it to or not, and for that we can be thankful. The revolution is here, my friends. It is time to rise up and fight against the systemic white supremacy culture inherent in our nation and sadly within our own denomination. Change is coming, whether we're ready for it or not. Let us be aware of our past. Let us be aware of our own shortcomings. Let us be aware of our impact on others, regardless of our intent. Let us do better and be better. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so.
Thank you, Reverend Tracy. It's so quiet in here. Normally we'd have a big applause, but we're all clapping here. It's just very quiet. All right, we will now extinguish our chalice, and please say with me the words as I extinguish the flame. These we burn in our hearts until we are to go again. We'll have our closing music, Everyday People. This is popularized, and words or music by Sly Stewart. I don't know who that is, so I'm looking forward to hearing. Sly and the Family Stone? Okay. Okay.
Sometimes I'm right, and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my songs. Butcher, the baker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in.
Sometimes I'm right, I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in. 'Cause I am everyday people. There is a blue one that can't accept the green one, for living with the fat one, trying to be a skinny one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. And Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo, shop, shop. We are to live together.
I am no better, and neither are you. We are the same, whatever we do. You love me, you hate me, you know me, and then still can't figure out the thing I'm in. 'Cause I am everyday people. Yeah, yeah.
There is a wrong way that doesn't like the strong. And for being such a rich one, that will not help the poor one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. It's Scooby-Dooby-Doo, shop, shop. We are to live together. There is a yellow one that won't accept the black one, that won't accept the red one, that won't accept the white one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. It's Scooby-Dooby-Doo, shop, shop. And everyday
Yes, I did recognize that at the end. My closing words today, just to bring a little bit of levity to our service, are from Betty White. Betty White would have turned 100 tomorrow. She just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and she had two quotes that kind of made me feel a little bit lighter today. It's your outlook on life that counts. If you take yourself lightly and don't take yourself too seriously, pretty soon you can find the humor in our everyday lives, and sometimes it can be a lifesaver. She also wrote, kindness and consideration of somebody besides yourself keeps you feeling young. So, thank you, everybody. Go in peace. Please, everybody, play it safe, and we hope to see you back here in person just as soon as possible. Thank you.